Imagine being on a flight where a young boy gets slapped by a flight attendant right in front of everyone. No one knew who he was, not even her. But just minutes later, that same woman would be surrounded by airline officials and face the one man she should have never crossed. Because that quiet little boy, he was the son of the airline's true owner. What happened next shocked every passenger on board and the entire internet. It began on a bright Monday morning at JFK Airport, one of those days when everyone seemed to be in a rush. The lines were long, the announcements loud, and people carried their stress like extra luggage. Among the sea of travelers stood a young boy named Eli Carter, holding a small blue backpack and a worn-out teddy bear named Mr. Buttons. Eli was only 10, quiet and polite, nothing like the noisy kids who usually ran around the terminal. This was his first time flying alone, and although he tried to look brave, his nervous eyes told a different story. His father, James Carter, knelt beside him near the departure gate. "You'll be fine, champ," he said with a smile. "Just remember what I told you. Stay polite, listen to the crew, and don't be afraid to ask for help." Eli nodded, clutching his father's hand one last time before boarding. What no one around them knew was that James Carter wasn't just any businessman. He was a major shareholder and silent owner of Skyline Air, the very airline operating this flight. He had built the company from scratch, but he preferred to keep a low profile. For him, action spoke louder than titles. As Eli stepped onto the plane, the flight attendants greeted passengers one by one. That's when he met Ms. Rogers, the lead flight attendant. She had years of experience, but carried herself with a strict, no-nonsense attitude. When she saw a boy traveling alone, she didn't smile or offer comfort. Instead, she sighed and muttered under her breath, "Another spoiled kid flying business class." Eli didn't say anything. He simply smiled and walked to his seat by the window. Outside, he could still see his dad waving before the plane began a taxi. He whispered softly to his teddy bear. Dad said, "I'll be okay." But as the plane climbed through the clouds, small things began to show Ms. Rogers' true character. Her impatient tone, the way she barked orders at passengers, and her cold attitude toward anyone who didn't meet her standards. Eli didn't know it yet, but this ordinary flight would soon become the day that changed everything for both of them. The flight had been in the air for less than an hour when things started to go wrong. Eli sat quietly, gazing out the window as the clouds floated by like soft white pillows. He was nervous but excited, trying to remember all the things his dad had told him. After a while, he reached into his backpack, pulled out a small juice box and a pack of crackers, and placed them on the tray table. A little turbulence shook the plane, just enough to make his juice tip over. A few drops spilled onto the tray, and Eli quickly grabbed a napkin to clean it up. But before he could finish, Ms. Rogers appeared beside him with a sharp glare. "What do you think you're doing?" she snapped. Her voice was loud enough for people nearby to turn their heads. I'm sorry, ma'am," Eli stuttered. "It was an accident. I'm cleaning it up." Instead of helping him, she rolled her eyes and yanked the napkin from his hand. "You're making a mess," she said harshly. "Can't you just sit still like the other passengers?" Eli froze. His cheeks turned red with embarrassment. A man across the aisle frowned, watching closely. Then, as Eli reached again to grab his snack, Ms. Rogers slapped his small hand away. "Don't touch anything until I tell you." The sound of that slap echoed through the cabin. A woman in the next row gasped. Eli's eyes filled with tears, but he stayed quiet, afraid to make things worse. He turned his face toward the window, pretending to look outside while a single tear rolled down his cheek. What Ms. Rogers didn't realize was that the boy she just humiliated wasn't just any passenger. He was the son of the man who owned the entire airline. By the time the plane touched down in Los Angeles, the atmosphere in the cabin was thick with tension. Some passengers avoided eye contact with Ms. Rogers, while others quietly whispered about what they had witnessed. One young woman, sitting across the aisle, had recorded the entire scene on her phone. She hadn't planned to post it, but the moment she saw Eli's teary eyes, she knew people needed to see how cruelly he'd been treated. As soon as the plane landed, she uploaded the clip online. Within minutes, it began spreading like wildfire. The caption read, "Flight attendant hits young boy for spilling juice." Comments flooded in, Hundreds, then thousands, angry viewers demanding justice. Eli walked off the plane slowly, clutching his teddy bear, trying to hold back tears. At the arrival gate, his father, James Carter, stood waiting with a warm smile that quickly faded when he saw his son's face. He knelt down. "Eli, what happened?" Eli hesitated. "She got mad because I spilled my drink," he whispered, eyes down. Mr. Carter's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "Don't worry, son. We'll take care of it." He guided Eli toward the check-in counter and asked to see the flight's senior manager. The staff recognized him immediately, but none dared to speak as he handed over his business card. The manager's eyes widened. It read, "James Carter, founder and owner, Skyline Air." Silence fell. Mr. Carter looked the manager in the eye and said firmly, "Call Ms. Rogers." Now, the staff hurried to follow his instruction. None of them had realized that the quiet man standing in front of them, the one protecting his son, was the very person who signed their paychecks. Things were about to change dramatically. Moments later, Ms. Rogers walked briskly toward the terminal office, still unaware of what was waiting for her inside. She assumed the manager wanted a routine report about a passenger complaint. Straightening her uniform, she took a deep breath and pushed open the door, only to find a man sitting quietly with a young boy beside him. Her confident expression faltered the second she recognized Eli. The boy looked up, his small hands clutching his teddy bear, eyes still red from crying. Mr. Carter stood. "Ms. Rogers," he said evenly, "you can start by apologizing to my son." She blinked, confused. "Your son?" Then her face went pale. "Oh, Yes." Mr. Carter interrupted calmly. "James Carter, the owner of Skyline Air." The room went silent. The manager swallowed hard, unsure what to say. Ms. Rogers' voice trembled. "Sir, I didn't know." "That's the problem," Mr. Carter said sharply but without raising his tone. "You didn't know. You didn't care. You thought you could treat a child like he didn't matter because no one important was watching." Tears welled in her eyes as she tried to explain herself, but Mr. Carter stopped her again. "I don't need excuses. I need accountability. Every passenger on my airline deserves respect, no matter their age, race, or background. You fail that duty." He turned to the manager. Effective immediately, she suspended pending investigation. The manager nodded silently and took Ms. Rogers' ID badge. She looked down, unable to meet Eli's eyes. Mr. Carter then knelt beside his son and said gently, "You see, Eli, sometimes the right thing to do is speak up, but other times, you let the truth speak for itself." That moment would stay with everyone in that room forever. That'd be why the next morning, the story had spread across every social media platform. The video recorded on the flight had been viewed over 10 million times overnight. People couldn't believe what they were seeing, a child being mistreated by a flight attendant, only for it to turn out that his father was the airline's true owner. News channels replayed the clip, and comments flooded in praising James Carter for how calmly and gracefully he handled the situation. Reporters camped outside Skyline Air's headquarters, waiting for a response. When Mr. Carter finally spoke, his statement was simple but powerful. Kindness should never depend on status. Whether someone wears a suit or sits in the last row, they deserve respect. Power doesn't make you better. It makes you responsible. Those words went viral on their own. People shared them everywhere, calling it the airline lesson. Even rival companies began to adopt stricter conduct training for their staff. Back home, Eli sat beside his father on the porch, watching the sunset. He asked quietly, "Dad, were you mad at her?" Mr. Carter smiled softly. "I was disappointed, but anger doesn't fix anything. What matters is that she learns from it, and that you do too." Eli nodded slowly, understanding more than his age would suggest. His father added, "Never treat people based on who they are. Treat them based on who you are." A few weeks later, Ms. Rogers sent a handwritten apology to both Eli and Mr. Carter. She admitted her mistake and thanked him for giving her a second chance at understanding compassion. And from that day on, Skyline Air began every morning briefing with one line that became their promise to passengers everywhere. Every passenger matters. Sometimes, life tests us when no one's watching. That flight attendant learned the hard way that respect isn't about status, It's about humanity. Mr. Carter didn't seek revenge. He showed grace and turned a painful moment into a lesson for millions. So next time you meet someone, remember, you never really know who's sitting beside you. Treat everyone with kindness, because it always finds its way back.